thank you for coming along to this week's Lunch and Learn session. We want to talk to you about nailing your customer onboarding experience. And I think this is like such a cheap and easy thing to get right with your product and service, but so many companies do this so badly. And I think they do it either because they're just not thinking about some of the principles that I'm going to teach you here, or they do something way worse, which is they try and make their customer onboarding experience far too complicated. And they try to be way too clever in ways that they really don't need to be, and they mess it up from that point. So I want to teach you some of the principles that I've started to develop, having designed onboarding experiences for products that are getting hundreds of thousands of users, daily active users, all the way down to designing onboarding experiences for new scrappy startups. I think most people in this room, in fact, all of you in this room, I would categorize on that scrappy startup end, where we're dealing with maybe 1 or 2 people a week if we're really lucky. So we don't need to worry about how we deal with 100,000 people a day. That creates some wild problems. I hope that some of you get there, especially some of you who are building software, get to that point where you're onboarding that many users, maybe not a day, but over the course of a month. And I will tell you about some of the ways in which I've seen that go right and wrong as well. So first things first impressions last, right? And if you walk away with one thing and one thing only from this meeting today on this Lunch and Learn, I want you to know that the reason your onboarding is important is that it sets a foundation for your interaction, your relationship with that customer for the rest of the lifetime of that customer relationship that you have. And if you do this well, you will up your customers' lifetime gross profit. So how much money you earn out of knowing and working with that customer. You will be able to recruit them into your free marketing and sales team, which I think is always a great bonus and the best way to get awareness of your product out there into the market. But if you conversely get this wrong, no matter how much money you spend on marketing, you're building a team of detractors who are almost invisible to your company, who are out there talking about your product in negative terms. And that's really hard to overcome. It also sets a foundation for the relationship in which it exacerbates any problems with your product or service going forward. So let me tell you a little bit of how I've seen this work. Companies that have great onboarding experiences set this impression to be, we've got our product and service handled. We are looking after you. We know who you are. We know exactly where you should be. We know exactly what you're going to need to do next. And we are doing everything in our power to move you through this onboarding journey as we possibly can, and delighting you along the way. And when you do that, what actually happens in the customer's mind is they start to view you as someone who has, for better words, but has your shit handled, right? You are a company that owns what you do, and you take pride in what you do, and you do that well. And when that happens, you can have giant problems in your customer relationship later, where I've seen this, where as a company, we've really dropped the ball and broken a core part of our service, right? This is a software as a service business. So we had an outage for nearly 3 days of the service. No one could use the product that they were paying a lot of money for. But the customers that had great onboarding experiences were sat there not really worried about that, and actually weirdly blaming themselves for an issue that we had 100% caused. They were like, well, these guys are usually so good, and that experience of working with them has been so pleasurable. This is probably something I've done. So they don't cause too much of a fuss. Conversely, those customers who had really bad onboarding experiences, they start to form an opinion of you and your service that you are quite a lot of effort to work with. They probably have to chase you a lot to make you do the things you've promised that you're going to do. Everything feels very disjointed and chaotic. And therefore, when they experience problems later in the customer relationship, even if they are wholly at fault for that problem, even if they've done something really stupid and caused the problems themselves, they blame you for that problem time and time again. And so this is why these first impressions matter, because you can either build that one where they love you, they think you do everything really well, and that's what they tell the market, or you can build the first impression where where they're kind of annoyed by you and they're looking to drop you, your product or your service as quickly as humanly possible. So this is why this matters, and this is why it's worth focusing on. I think I felt a bit sassy when I was creating these slides this week, but so I want to say, like, most people's onboarding experiences is asking their customers to go through a form of delayed gratification, right? It's put your credit card information in here, jump through these 20 hoops, wait 3 or 4 weeks, and then and only then will I get around to delivering the value that we have promised, right? Everyone buys products and services to get some value out of your company, an outcome, right? They don't care about your process. They don't care about the exact steps that you have to go through to get them there. What they care about is getting the thing that they hoped and dreamed about when they decided to buy your product or service. And the longer you make them wait, the more you blow up the fear in their mind that they've been scammed. Who's experienced this before, where you've put your credit card information in and bought something, and then you've been left in a bit of a holding pattern where you think, oh, nothing's really happened. I haven't really got the thing that I was promised yet. Have I been scammed? Have I been taken advantage of here? Has anyone experienced that in a product or service that they've bought so far?
I haven't experienced it, but it's definitely something that I've thought about in terms of my own customers and making sure that they get some form of gratification so that they feel like they haven't just spent a whole lot of money and they're not sure whether it's going to happen or not.
Yep. Actually, so I've just been through your onboarding experience, Pippa, and I was thinking about that when I created that slide. One of the things you do really nicely that I think a lot of people could do in this room is in your onboarding form. So when I'm filling out the information to set up the direct debit, booking my initial meeting, sign the contract, you actually started to ask me questions that were moving me towards getting the outcome that I want. So just for context, everyone, Pippa is a brand photographer, or is going to be helping me with some personal brand photography. And in the onboarding form, it started to ask me about companies I love, brands I loved, things like that, which then I felt like I was making progress to the outcome I wanted, not just filling in really boring information around like, okay, like, sorry, Pippa, it's not that boring, but like signing the contract and giving you like payment information, right? You actually delivered some value because I started to think, well, actually, what brands do I want to be like? Who do I want to be? This is going to be cool because you're giving me some clarity already. So I would challenge you all to be a bit more like Pippa in that regard of like, your onboarding experience shouldn't just be me, right? And we're going to get into this later or around like not being selfish in your onboarding, but like, can you help them get some value whilst they're trying to pay you? Because if you can, we're not delaying that gratification so much, and they're going to be having a better time with your product and service, right? Which leads us nicely onto, I'm sure, like if you're in these sessions, you're going to get sick of seeing Alex Hormozy. I am a big Alex Hormozy fanboy. Alex Hormozy said this in such a beautiful way and it really solidified the way I think about creating products and services in terms of an onboarding perspective. He has a point where he says, the greatest thing you can focus on in your product or service is lowering the time to value. So the time that someone buys what you do and gets the outcome they want as close to zero as humanly possible. And so the theoretical perfect product, let's talk, like we work a lot with business coaches here on their products and experiences, right? So if we were to use the example of a coaching service, the perfect coaching service would be you jump on a clarity call with them. They understand what goals you have, why you want to change, what you want to change in your life, what outcomes you want. They pull out the credit card machine, you put your credit card in, and bang, you instantly have the mindset change, the bank account changes, the processes change in your business. Everything you hoped and dreamed for is magically kind of inserted into your life. That's like the perfect product, right? If there was a product like that, they could sell it for millions and they would still have a queue of customers going around the corner. Now, that is obviously impossible to build. So this is like a North Star vision that we have. But I want to challenge you in your current onboarding experiences. How can we reduce that time to value from the moment they pay to giving them a mini win, to giving them some free value, to giving them a sense that they've made the right decision and working with you is going to be really fun and also going to get them the outcomes they want. Because if you can do that, they will start telling their kind of co-workers, their friends and family, whoever it is that needs to hear about it, about this really nice company that they're working for that is different to their normal experience. The vast majority of product onboarding experiences, I would say, are poor for some of the reasons we're going to get into. It's really not a lot of effort for you to improve this 10-20% over your competition and start to have this as a mode of differentiation for your service, which I think is really exciting because it doesn't cost hundreds of thousands to do. So when we're thinking about your onboarding experiences, I want you to channel your inner Hormozy and think about how we lower that time to value as close to zero as possible, and challenge yourselves of how can we deliver results faster, even if that's just a mini result of what we ultimately want to get them when we're working with them for, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. Okay, so I heard this phrase maybe 8 or 9 years ago now. This thought experiment here is actually what kicked off my entire career as a UX designer, right? If your product was a dinner party guest, would you invite that guest back for dinner a second time round, right? And when I say product here, again, it can mean software product, it could mean service. But let's personify your product a little bit. And if you invited your product for dinner and they arrive at your house and they're like, hey, I've got all these forms for you to sign. You need to give me this information. I need your credit card information now. You need to book this meeting in with me. You really need to do that. And all that person was doing is saying me, 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 me. It's interrupting everyone's conversations. It's being rude. It's being kind of a bit pushy and aggressive. You would probably not invite that person back for dinner the second time round, I'm guessing. You'd be a bit like, absolutely not. No, thank you. But that is actually the onboarding experience that most of us create, because we've taken the payment and we're so happy that we've done the thing that we're so desperate to do a lot of the times, which is make the sale, that we go into this mode of being very, very selfish with what we need, why we need it, when we need it. And we have little to no empathy for that person who's just bought it, in allowing them to take things at their own pace, and or have a smooth experience where we're delivering that value. So again, I want you to put yourself in the shoes of people going through your onboarding experience, and even actually trial onboard yourself to your product. You'll learn a lot, right? And think about am I being really selfish with my onboarding process? Am I asking for a lot of information that I don't really need? Am I being really needy and demanding with the processes that we want people to go through? We recently have trialed this. So I got my team to onboard me as a fake client, which was a very illuminating experience, because getting the automated emails that we sent out, looking at how that email was worded, etc., from the perspective of a fake customer, I started to realize we were doing this as well. And I talk about this with my clients all the time, and we'd fallen foul of it. We were being incredibly selfish and asking for an awful lot of information in our onboarding experience that I think we could just get rid of, that we don't actually need, that we could pre-fill out for the customer and just say, could you just double check this, rather than filling in the form for the 20th time. So think about this as we dive into how you can improve your onboarding experiences. Of don't be the selfish dinner party guest, be the dinner party guest that is making everyone have a great time that people want to surround themselves with. So as we dive into some of these principles, I'm not going to get into specifics in terms of particular onboarding flows that you can create, because I think depending on your product, the time in which it's delivered, how much it costs, etc., there's a ton of variables in there that would make this presentation very lengthy and very, I guess, not useful for most of you. I want to give you high level principles that if you start thinking about when you're looking at your onboarding experience, you can channel some of these mental models or sayings that I'm going to give you here, and you'll be able to work through your onboarding process and make it better. And again, it's not about sitting down one day and saying, today we're focused on onboarding and we're going to create a 5-star onboarding experience. Creating great onboarding experiences is a process that happens over years, not weeks, right? It's something that you have to have enough people going through and measuring their experience and coming up with improvements to it over time, rather than trying to do it once, do everything, and then hoping that it's worked. And that's usually where people fail. Principle number one is like, get out of people's way. Allow them to move through your product or service in such a way that gets them to that value as quickly as possible. I've seen people create really complicated, very clever, but very complicated onboarding experiences that have all of these pitfalls, potential pitfalls for their customers, where they start asking really complicated questions in the onboarding form. I had one, actually, a good example of this. We're going through a book launch at the minute, and as the onboarding process with the book designer, the first question asked me, what does success look like for this book cover? And I kind of sat there and I'm looking at this form and I've got another 20 questions to fill out. And I thought, I'm not a book designer. How do I know what successful looks like? It was such an introspective question. I actually closed down the onboarding form and waited 3 days before I felt like I could tackle it, right? And I don't think that's something that they should have been putting in my way to onboard me to the first meeting. So have you got things in your process for onboarding a client where you're asking for a lot of information, or you're asking things that might give people pause for thought, at which point they go, oh, that seems like a lot of effort at this point in time. I'm going to put that to one side and I'm going to do that later. Because when that happens, this is how we kind of get churn within our product or service, where people just never come back in. They never reinstall, they never reopen the app if you're designing an app, or they never reply to that onboarding email. And then you're in the mode of chasing them around and it starts to become a bit of an effort. So make way for them to move swiftly through your product. In fact, actually, an example that I want to give you here as well is I was trying to rent a electric scooter, one of those ones that you ride around in Liverpool a couple of years ago. And I had to download an app to do this. I just wanted to jump on this electric scooter, pay some money, and ride around the city centre with my friends, right? They already had the app. I was a laggard in this case and was having to download it. I had to onboard to that product. I had to download it. I had to sign in. I had to sign an insurance agreement. I had to watch or scroll through like 15 different slides of how we use it, sign up to the terms of service, etc., etc., etc. I really did not want to go through that onboarding experience at that point because it was asking way too much of me. It should have got out my way and said, what can we do that is minimal enough that, you know, protects us legally as a company and allows us to take payment? But like, do we need to give him all of the instructions right now of like how he can sign up for our discount loyalty program and earn points with every ride so that one ride's free, you know, 6 months into the future? No. Don't do that in the first parts of your onboarding experience. That just get out of people's way and allow them to enjoy your product, and then build information or gather information to deepen that relationship with them as you go further down the line with this customer. The second principle is like, give them the light bulb moment if you can within your onboarding experience. So if you think about the outcome that your customers are wanting, there's going to be things that you can do, give them, or help them experience within the onboarding process that's going to let that little light bulb shine off in their head, right? And once you do that, you've got them hooked, right? Once you give them the little light bulb moment, it's actually easier to make them jump through more hoops afterwards and give you more information, because now you've lowered their guard, you've given some value, you've allowed them to experience what it is that they wanted to experience by working with you. And now there's more trust there, so you can ask them to do more things. And we would find in software a lot of the time that there would be a core set of features and functionality built into our product that we knew, actually, if in the first time someone logs in, they do X, Y, and Z, they use feature 1, 2, and 3, we know there's a way better chance that that person continues to be a subscriber 6 to 12 months into the future and become a a profitable customer. But here's how people get it wrong. Have you ever downloaded an application that before you've used it, it's like, give us a review on the App Store. You're like, I haven't done anything with you yet. What would I review? You haven't actually delivered any light bulb moments for me, but you're asking for reviews, feedback, testimonials in the onboarding process. And quite frankly, that like annoys me enough that you're now not getting a review, even if I kind of like the app on the back end. Do any of you like have ideas or questions of like how you could deliver mini light bulb moments in your product or service?
Yeah, I guess for me, like it's a service-based business. So how do you do that when you're a service? You deliver something very specific.
Yeah. So one way, like just because I know your business really well, Pippa, one way you could deliver the light bulb moment. So you have your brand strategy process, right? Or in terms of your image strategy process. You also have that really nice scorecard that I know, having done it 6 months ago. As I went through that, it gives some suggestions of what my brand could be. So in the onboarding process, if you were to show me, let's say they haven't done this already, if you were to give me that scorecard and give me a mini brand and say, actually, we're going to work on this in the meeting we've got, you've given me the light bulb moment because you've already demonstrated your value in a small way. Gemma, I've been thinking about this one for you recently, which is like, why do I work with a VA? I want to buy back time because I'm super stressed all the time and my calendar is quite frankly a nightmare and I'm always forgetting what I've got to do when, right? So imagine in your onboarding process, if there was a calendar audit where you ask me to share my calendar and you deliver me a report before the first meeting or something like that, where it says, we've identified 3 hours of potential savings we could get you every week. We're going to discuss that in the meeting. I'm like, bang, Gemma's on it, right? That's some value there that I'd be really excited now to do the rest of the hoops you need to get me to jump through because you've already demonstrated some value.
Great idea. Love it.
Yeah,
More of those, please.
Yeah, you should definitely be doing that. So it's demonstrating like the mini parts of your service that like it's not the full result. That's unreasonable to ask in the onboarding process, but we would know. Okay, I'll go to an example that we had for a big SaaS Ed Tech product. We knew that the onboarding process there would typically take us 2 months because we had to install hardware, we had to train them, we had to do all sorts of like really horrible, like stuff would be shipped from China and we'd have to get it installed in the school. But we started to give them mini light bulb moments that when they signed up, we gave them a questionnaire about what kind of school they were. And we said, hey, based on the answers you've given, we've created a setup for this piece of software that's going to do 90% of the work for you. So when you install it, it's going to be super smooth. And now when they're waiting, they're actually excited about the hardware coming because it's already set up in their head. So it's a mini light bulb moment. And the reason we put that in there is because before we'd have this huge gap where someone would pay, nothing would happen. Sometimes they would never even get into installing the product because someone else had come along and delivered value in that time frame. So think about that as you think about your onboarding experience. Mini light bulb moments, and the more of them you can do, the better, right? Little pieces of value, like breadcrumbing people down the path of eventually getting the result that they want. Okay, no bait and switch. I couldn't think of a really nice image for this one, but so you just get text. But this, like I've been talking about this so much recently with people who have really strong personal brands that they're selling their services through, in which they want to scale their service. And this happens a lot with business coaches, right? They want to scale their service, but when they get to a certain point, they can no longer handle all of the onboarding calls and processes themselves. And so they employ a junior member of staff or a sub coach or someone like that to handle that for them. And as their customer moves through the process, their customer suddenly starts to feel like they've been promised something they haven't got, right? They thought that this superstar coach that they've been following their content online for ages was going to be there looking at their problem. And that's why they paid the crazy figure, 6-figure sum to work with this coach, right? And now we have like Daryl, who I've never heard of, jumping on a sales call with me to walk me through the program, I'm now very confused. And I feel like there's been a bait and switch. And this is a massive risk if you're going to build a strong personal brand and you have a heavy service element within your product, that you will get to a point where you can no longer scale because this bait and switch problem will rear its head. And I think the solution to this is be careful what you promise and be very purposeful about how you position different people and elements within your onboarding experience, right? If I think I'm going to speak to a specific coach, but actually the onboarding process is I'm going to speak to this sub coach, why don't you position that sub coach as the onboarding success manager instead of a sub coach? Now I don't feel like there's a bait and switch. Now I feel like this person's on my side and is there to do everything in their power to help me get through this process successfully. And I think the bait and switch problem, if people are starting to say that to you, like, oh, I thought we were going to work together really closely, or I felt like I was going to get something, but that I didn't really get. If that happens, you have to be brave enough to look at your onboarding process and say, that's on me, because we've made a promise somewhere along the line that has misaligned expectations. That means we need to be very careful with the language we use. We need to get clearer on what we're actually delivering, and we need to be very clear on who is involved and why they are involved. So I don't think too many people in this group currently today is going to be experiencing this problem. But as you grow your personal brand, and I hope you will do grow a personal brand, you will encounter this problem more and more, is that people want to work with you, and then you're going to feel very trapped by your onboarding experience. And you start to hear, I was speaking with two coaches who have a really successful mastermind product that they've built, right? They're like, oh, we don't want to onboard more than one person a week. And it's this reason that they don't want to do it, because the onboarding becomes unscalable because everyone wants their time and attention and they've got a business to run. So the way you combat that is by positioning people who are going to help you deliver a service in a way that is positioned in such a way that it feels like a benefit to your customer to work with them, not that they've just been handed off to the junior member of staff that is going to give them worse results, right? Principle number 4 is clarity of progress, right? So many times onboarding experiences are severely hampered because the customer just has no clue of what's going to happen and when. And if we just gave them the map, if we just gave them the 10,000 foot overview of like, here is the process, you're going to speak with me here, then you've got to fill this in, then this is going to happen, etc., they would be much more comfortable in what they're going through because they know where they're going. And I'm going to give you a really weird example now of like a company that's done this in a genius way. Uber is such an incredible product because they solved the psychological issue of not knowing where your taxi was. Do you remember like when you used to book a taxi and then you have to ring them up and be like, is he on his way? Yeah, he's 5 minutes. Where you're standing by the door, everyone's getting annoyed. Uber just created a little map and said, your driver is here. Whether your driver is actually there or not, who knows? But they give you clarity of the progress being made. And therefore, it lowers all of your nerves and fears, and you kind of let the process play out. I would bet, and I would imagine in a lot of your businesses that you don't even have an onboarding process written out step by step with who is involved, when, and why. But imagine if you had a mini video, 5-minute video that you recorded, just talking through that document, that anytime someone signed your contract, they got sent this video and it said, thank you for working with us. We can't wait to get you XYZ result. Here's what's going to happen next. And then this is going to happen. And we're going to send you this, expect They would feel so much more relaxed. And if we go back to that idea of first impressions, they would feel very much like this is not a service that you've just delivered once and you're kind of winging it. It's something that you must do time and time again. So they believe that they're going to get their results better, which will make them more compliant, which will probably get them better results. But they won't be pestering you with questions, or they won't be sat there very confused and worried about why they haven't heard anything from you guys in a little while, because they know that they can look that document up or that video and say, oh, we're in this stage. I know where we are. So just give people clarity on the process. Let them know the journey you're going to take them on and why it's important, right? Especially if you need to gather a lot of information from people for legal reasons or for just process reasons. Let them know why you're going to gather that and what that's going to do to help them get the outcome that they want. They'll give you that information more freely. And then last but not least, simple scales, complex fails. So this is where people really go wrong with onboarding, right? Hopefully I've convinced you within this talk today that onboarding is important in terms of the impressions you set with your customers. And then you're going to all run off and you're going to go out there and you're going to be like, cool, let's automate the hell out of our onboarding. Let's install loads of products and services that's going to help us onboard hundreds of thousands of people if we ever needed to in an automated way. I want to warn you against that, like massively. Do not go and create a very clever, very automated, very complex onboarding system, because the more complex you make a system, the more fragile that system is. The simpler you make that system, the more robust it is, and the better results that you'll get out of it. And a lot of the times when we've been brought into businesses to improve their onboarding experiences, the things we do is just remove stuff. We don't actually add anything in. We challenge ourselves to say, what can we delete from this process? Do we actually need to gather this information? Does this meeting actually need to occur? And we simplify until we struggle to simplify anymore. And to show you how this works, like, so any of you space nerds in the group, this is a photo of SpaceX's Raptor engine for their new Starship rocket. On the left is version 1. There is pipes coming out everywhere, sensors. It's an incredibly complex machine. It's incredibly fragile, and it broke all the time, resulting in some pretty entertaining firework displays, right? On the right is the V2, and you can see how much they went in and deleted parts, processes, pipes, all of this kind of stuff is gone. And in doing so, not only did it become more reliable, they actually improved the performance of that engine massively. And I would say to you, if you have an onboarding process, challenge yourself to go and simplify it. And there's a saying I love to use with all of our clients is like, any fool can make something complex. That is easy. It takes a true genius to simplify something. And if you simplify your onboarding process, you will get people the value that they want out of using your product and service way, way faster and in a way that delights them more, right? So simplify your process. Do not allow it to be really complex, and challenge yourself to simplify. Have any of you got onboarding processes that you feel is really complex at this point? Is anyone thinking, actually, I'm probably asking too much, or I'm probably overcomplicating this and trying to be too clever?
Lee, I think that from some of the people that I've been working with who've got service-based industries, I've just realised exactly what you said. It's all about them needing the information rather than thinking about what the end user actually wants to get that service as quickly as possible. And then the other things can come, maybe that's part of a telephone, like a Zoom conversation where you can gather that little bit of information. But so many times, exactly what you said, it's been a situation where you end up chasing for that information because somebody's gone, I can't be bothered, I've had enough.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and half the time when we really challenge it, like, do we even need that information? Or are we just by default gathering information because we think it's going to be useful at some point in the future?
One, if you don't mind. So Jill was my first client that I onboarded, and I wanted her to go through the process. And I actually realized I'd done everything that you said that I shouldn't. And I got in the way. My whole thing should be that I'm saving people time. And what did I do? I sent her, please answer these 5 questions. Yep. And as a busy business owner, you're going to go, oh, I can't be bothered with that. But I was thinking about me, and I was thinking about how actually once I get all that information, then I can save them time, and I've just done it completely the wrong way around.
Here's the thing, right? We think they've just bought, so they should be at their moment of highest like compliance in terms of they're excited to get the result, so I can make them jump through these hoops at this point. But that slows momentum down, which worsens the relationship. And when we worsen the relationship, that relationship will be shorter in terms of how long they work with us. If instead you actually are braver and say, I'm going to deliver such fantastic results, this person's going to be with us for a year, 2 years, you can gather more of that information in your interactions with them further down the line. And I go back to the example with the App Store reviews that you see everywhere now, you're aware of this, is those apps are so afraid that you're going to uninstall their application. They're like, quick, get the review in, like before they uninstall it. But if they actually slow down and say, we're going to give you a great experience, they could ask for the review 3 months down the line, and you'd be like, 5-star, love this thing, use it every day. And so, yeah, Gemma, you're right in thinking, give them a result first, then gather more information, then become more complex in your interactions with them, but be simple and direct at first and just charge towards results. Results are king. And if you just do that, they'll sell your products
I
and
think
service
all
for
the
you.
answers that Jill gave, I would have found out over time anyway. And I think maybe part of it was like, I want her to see that I'm looking so organized, and that whole thing about making it about me has really sunk in. So that was gold.
Don't be the selfish dinner party guest.
Yeah.
Your action from this meeting, right? I want you to look at your onboarding process, but I want you to automate slowly. I don't want to hear, and if you want reviews of like what your onboarding process is, post them in the Facebook group, and I will do some high-level reviews of like these principles applied to what you're doing. I do not want to hear that you've gone out and used something like Go High Level or any of these other automation tools, and you've said, end to end, I've automated the hell out of my onboarding process. Because I don't know why this happens, but like everyone wants to do things like this at distance from their customers, right? They want to say, you know what, I want to create an automated onboarding experience that allows me to handle 1,000 customers a day. And I'm like, will you ever have 1,000 customers a day? No. Do you have 1,000 customers a day at this point? Also no. So like, let's be willing to do the things that don't scale. Let's be willing to create a bit more of a manual onboarding process, but where we make sure we get it right. And slowly over time, we can identify the things that really take up a lot of your focus, time, and effort and prevent you handling more. We automate those to free you up to do the acts of service that make it remarkable, right? And I think, so many people get this so wrong. They try and be too clever too soon. Have any of you had this experience where you sign up for a service, you start getting the automated emails, but something goes wrong? They think you're at step number 5, but you're still stuck in step number 2, and the automated emails keep coming and keep coming and keep coming. You get buried underneath them, and you start to go, you know what? No one at this company really cares about me. I'm just another number in the machine, and I'm a cog that happens to have broken at this point in time. Like, it's really bad, and it doesn't really save you that much time and effort. Keep humans in the process, automate slowly, and automate in such a way that allows you to do better service for your customers. Don't remove yourself from the process. Be willing to do things that don't scale. And when you do automate, or when you do improve your onboarding experience, let's go back to that story that I told you at the start. You're not going to create the perfect onboarding experience in your first try. It's not going to be perfect in your third. And I hope that you never perfect your onboarding experience, because if you have perfected your onboarding experience, you've probably just stopped evolving your service rather than having got to some nirvana, right? So we need to have feedback loops, or you need to have feedback loops in your product and service that you deliver, which is when people go through an onboarding experience, like next time you speak with them, ask them, like, what was that like? Like, was that good? Did that make you feel at ease? Was it useful? Was it easy? Let them tell you what they experience and use that experience to drive innovation and change in your business. You execute on those ideas, see what happens, analyze the results, rinse and repeat, and you do that forever. And I, want to challenge you to committing to doing something that I think is really powerful. We're talking about onboarding today, but we could extrapolate this out. There's all of these processes in your business that you have designed in a certain way, right? And we think, hey, I want to solve a business problem I've got. I want to grow bigger. I want to onboard more. I want to automate that. I want to free up my time. There's all these things that you're trying to do. And we usually reach for the really shiny, fun solutions to those problems, right? My team will tell you, I'm the worst for this, where I'm like, guys, we're doing AI video messaging on LinkedIn to invite people to a workshop. So why are we playing around with a tool like that? What would actually be better is if we focused on doing the boring bits in our company that we know if we do get us the results, right? And just committing to being a little bit better at the really boring things that drive results, being 1% better every single week in your business. And the way you do that is by having these feedback loops where you look at your product and service, you try to experiment to improve it a little bit, you see what happens, you ask your customers, what was that like? And you rinse and repeat. And if you do that long enough, none of your competitors will catch you, and you will move yourself from a position where your product is like pretty good, I hope, to a point where it's remarkable and people go through the onboarding experience that you have and go, that's the best onboarding I've ever had. Like, that was actually fun. Like, you delighted me, and you made me have fun, and you made me feel really valued. And I'm going to tell 5 people about that. And what would that do for the bottom line of your company? I'd rather you take all of your marketing spend and focus on delighting the customers you do have in such a way that they just do the marketing for you for free, rather than spending thousands of pounds on Facebook adverts, right? So hopefully I can get you to commit to being that 1% better. Does anyone have any questions about their current onboarding experience, or things that they're like curious about, worried about to do with onboarding, that I can jump into an answer for you now? Or who's going to commit to being 1% better in their business every week in the boring stuff? It's never the fun, exciting, as much as I would love it to be the fun, exciting stuff, because I would get to design it. It's never that. It's always like doing the boring things that you know you need to be doing better, that gets you actual results.
So from a service industry point of view, what would be your ultimate first stage of the onboarding? What is a good example? Because I'm thinking, like, I'm loving these ideas, but now I don't really know where to start.
Gemma, because what I would actually encourage you to do is map the experience out. And I wish I had a thought of this, because I could have shown you an example. There's something called a service blueprint, which is probably completely overkill for you to go and do, but it gives you an idea of how we would do this for very complex services, in which you map out, like, what are the processes? Like, what is step 1, step 2, step 3? What is it currently? Who's involved? Like, what is the customer doing? What are you doing? What systems are involved? Map that out on Post-it notes, and then look at that service, and wherever you see lots of Post-it notes, I would hone in on that and say, can we remove those Post-it notes? Like, does that need to be removed? Could that be removed? Could it be simplified? Could we make this less complex? Could we combine this data gathering with an initial meeting? So it's difficult to get into the specifics, but like, you've got to map it first. Once you map it, you can improve it. Yeah. Most people never map it. It's just, we have onboarding by default, and then it's kind of a bit different every single time. So at least make it a process. And then once you have that process written out, then you can start to identify improvements to that.
Yeah. Okay. Good plan. I had a really bad onboarding experience this week. So I've obviously just moved to Devon, and I was like, oh, I just need to order an online shop and get it delivered. So I went on, and who delivers in my area? And Morrison's was like, oh, we do. So I signed up, downloaded the app, did my shopping thing, entered the postcode, and they said, we're not currently delivering in your area. And you're like, oh. So now I'm subscribed. I spent all this time, and I'm currently getting, oh, you can get 10% off your next delivery. And I'm like, you don't deliver here. So I'm just so. And now
I'm thinking, like, I never want to use Morrison's delivery service, right? Because that would really piss me off. But this is why you have to map it, because if you actually mapped that process out, you'd realize that's a piece of information you must ask up front, because let's not onboard someone who's ineligible for our service. That's an absolute waste of time. And it's cost them money, right? They've got your email address now, but you're probably going to block it. That's going to affect their email deliverability. So this is why you should ask for the stuff you absolutely need, and only that, to get them some value.
Agreed.
Lee, can I ask something? So one of our clients has got a social media business, they've got an agency, and they've got courses, etc., etc. So currently on their onboarding, which is very quick, but one of the things I've picked up, it's not the onboarding by the coach, it's given to somebody later, but they're not told about the value. So that's one thing that they can do. Okay. But so many people I know, and they have that first interaction, they want knowledge on, it may be LinkedIn, it may be Instagram or whatever. So would you say to give them that immediate value on that onboarding call with the right person, they could be immediately shown where that information is? So that would be the value, rather than here's all of the stuff, because it's overwhelm, so much overwhelm.
It's, yeah, deliver that, like, if that's something that comes up all the time, just deliver it proactively in the onboarding process. Don't even make them go, don't make me go find it. Just make it very obvious. And so I just signed up for Daniel Priestley's KPI accelerator, right? The onboarding experience of that was incredible to a point, then it got a bit overwhelming. Essentially though, you pay, they give you the portal link and they say, ignore everything else, and there's the quick start guide. And that is 4 videos, and it gets you to take one action. And in taking that action, it builds momentum. That action got me a result towards what I wanted. It delivered some value, which allowed me to take more actions. And now we have the snowball in effect. So if your customers want common information repeatedly, move that to the front of your onboarding. Deliver, that's your little light bulb moment. Once they see that's valuable, like, they'll go into the portal and they'll seek more information, and they're more compliant in doing the things that you want them to do. But I hate onboarding experiences where you make me work for it. Like, I'm paying you, work for me. Don't make me jump through all the hoops. Like, you know where it is, like, signpost it to me. Again, it's about not being selfish. It's controversial, but also just assume all of your customers are kind of dumb. They're not, but don't rely on them to read lengthy, detailed instructions, because they will never read it. I've tried for 8 years to design things where people will just read the information and they'd have a great time if they did. They will never read it. So small bite-sized chunks, don't overwhelm them, make it clear and obvious. And sometimes you've got to send something 3 times before they do it. And we can huff and puff and say, if only they would read, like, this would all be so much simpler. But unfortunately, they're not going to read, and then they're going to get into a bit of a trap with your service, and it's you who they're going to blame. And it is you who are going to suffer the result of that blame. So just deal with it. make it easy and obvious, right? A good example is this, like, this house I'm in at the minute. Like, I was really impressed by their onboarding service, in that you got added to a WhatsApp group. There is all the links in there, and then that links to a document, and it's like, frequently asked questions. Wi-Fi was first, because that's going to be my first thing that I'm going to ask about. Here's a local supermarket so I can get some food. And it was like, they must know exactly what people like me ask and when, because all of their information was delivered in a way that I was like, oh, they've already predicted it. And then I was like, these guys are sick, right? And now I'm telling you about their and I will tell other people like me about this place, and they should stay, because they understood the sequence of events really, really well.